Hi, my name's Zoran and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be upcycling this blouse and turning it into a V-neck button-up shirt. So let's get to it. I started by splitting the top into 4 pieces, front, back and arms. I then folded the front panel in half and cut straight down the middle in order to give me 2 pieces. I folded a V-neck jumper that I already owned in half and lined it up with the centre pieces and used it as a template to get a rough idea of the shape that I wanted. I drew around the edges and just adjusted the V-neck to how I wanted to have it. I added onto the bottom section of the top a set of rectangle flaps which would allow for space for the buttons and overlapping of the top. I then cut around the chalked marks, making sure to add seam allowance as I went. Next I pinned the front 2 pieces together to hold them in place so I was able to lay the front section on the top of the back piece of the top. Nice. Making sure right sides were together. Then I chalked around the edges of the top, creating the back section. After having cut it out, I then headed to the sewing machine and sewed together the sides and the shoulders, turning it into a weird looking. In order to design my sleeve pattern, I used a piece of paper to trace along the open section of the armhole that could give me a measurement as to how wide my sleeve piece needed to be. I measured along the line I had traced and then used my tape measure to create an S-curve shape that would be the right length to match up with my armholes. I then placed the longer edge of the sleeve on the fold of the original sleeve piece, traced around and allowed for seam allowance before cutting both sleeves out. The sleeves turned out fine and matched up really well. And then attach them to the armholes on the top. I did this by turning the top inside out and then matching the right sides of the top to the right sides of the sleeves, pinning them in place and then sewing them both together. Once having done this, I decided I wanted to open the V-neck up more, so I trimmed away some of the extra fabric. I then did a double fold all the way along the top front and hemmed it all in place. I played around with overlapping the front sections and decided on how I wanted to cross over the front pieces and where I wanted them to sit. I did this by trying it on and making a mark where the centre front would be on both pieces and where they would overlap. I folded over the rectangle flaps and decided to sew the 2 pieces together in the end. I initially wanted to create buttonholes and buttons, however I decided it would work just as well if the buttons were just decorative, since I could already fit my head through the V-neck. Lastly, I hemmed the bottom of the shirt and the sleeves. I would have liked to have added a tie around the waist, however, because I was working from the shirt, I didn't have enough fabric to be able to do this. So I just did a basic hem in the end. And here's the finished top. This piece didn't turn out as well as I had hoped and is definitely one I'd like to come back and try again, potentially without the restriction of limited amounts of fabric. However, for a first attempt and working with limited amounts of fabric, I'm happy with how it turned out. Thank you for making it this far into my 3rd video. If you like what I do, feel free to subscribe or give this video a like.